KNDD, Seattle. A day devoted to Kurt Cobain on your Nirvana radio station. 107.7 The End.
It's Dick Rossetti here with Seattle music guy and Nirvana producer Jack Endino. Jack, welcome.
Yo, Richard, how you doing?
Thanks for coming in. I appreciate it.
Yes, indeed.
I realize this is not something that you do all the time.
No, I kind of lay low on this subject most of the time.
Yeah.
But, 10 years, a lot of water under the bridge.
Yeah.
What the heck? Anything for my pal Dick.
Well, let me go on record as saying as I appreciate that. He's got his teas. Is a tea working for you?
Throat coat, yes, indeed.
Okay, good. So we got a lot of ground to cover, and we'll cover it. First thing I wanted to ask about, a lot of people, they know you as producing Nirvana and stuff like that, and it's like, oh, yeah, he's the quote-unquote godfather of grunge and this and that. It's like, prior to January 1988, what had you been doing around here musically? Who had you been recording at Reciprocal Studios in Ballard?
Well, I was in a band called Skin Yard, and I became a partner with Chris Hanzik, who, we found a building that was vacant, and we moved into it in I think it was July of 1986, and opened Reciprocal Recording in the old Triangle Recording Building. And, Chris brought his friends in, and I brought my friends in as clients. And the first people I had in the door practically were Soundgarden and Green River, like right from the get-go.
Uh-huh.
So, they were doing their own thing. Nobody was paying, Sub Pop didn't exist yet. So, right off the bat, I was recording people, for nothing. Pennies, starving, that's what you do in this biz at first. And, eventually, my band kept going, and, people knew me from the band, and, one thing led to another. Bruce and Jonathan started the Sub Pop label and started putting out some of the stuff I was recording for these bands, and, you know the rest of it, really.
Yeah. Well, you get a call from this guy, the infamous story, this guy Kurt, friend of the Melvins, saying
basically, hey, my name's Kurt Cobain, and I'm a friend of the Melvins, and we've got Dale playing drums with us. We want to come up and record this demo of this stuff we've been doing, and we don't have any money. We just want to just go in for an afternoon and see what we get. And I said, okay, friend of the Melvins, friend of mine. When you want to do it, come on up. So we booked January 23rd, 1988, and I'd only been a professional engineer for a year and a half at that point, working in this 8-track studio. And they came up, and in 5 hours, blew out 10 songs, top to bottom. I think we spent like 4 hours recording them and an hour mixing them, which works out to about 6 minutes per song to mix them, which is roughly 2 plays through the song, and it's mixed. And 5 of those exact mixes wound up going on Incesticide years later in their original form, and I thank God that they sound as good as they do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who would have known it?
So was it the classic? You mix? Did you mix the stuff on the cassette for them and then send them back to Aberdeen?
Basically, yeah. And
Wow.
I said, "Can I keep a copy of the cassette, you guys?" And because this is kind of cool, you don't mind if I play it for some people? And they were like, "Sure."
And that's the one you gave to Poneman.
Yeah, I gave
Sub
him
Pop.
a copy. I actually gave a few out to a few people, and so did the band, which is why that stuff got bootlegged all over the place. But, that's how it goes. Who would have thunk?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the tape I gave to John.
So, do you remember which? You probably know this by heart. What songs were on that tape?
I think there's 5 or 6 tunes. Well, I don't remember offhand all 10 songs. The first song was called "If You Must," and hasn't been released anywhere, although I see it on a bootleg sitting right in front of me. There was Floyd the Barber and Paper Cuts, which later we remixed and put on Bleach. He added like some backing vocal harmony bits to them, and we just remixed them and stuck them on Bleach. There's the 5 tunes, I think, that are on Incesticide. I think there's one more that got stuck on Bleach as a bonus cut, and there was one more at the end of the tape called Paper Cuts. No, excuse me. Pen Cap Chew, which also I don't think has been bootlegged. There's a live version of it floating around. So there's basically 2 songs from that tape that have never gone out except maybe as bootlegs. And, whatever. The stuff gets, stuff all seems to get around,
Yeah. 107.7 The End. It's Dick Rossetti here with Nirvana producer Jack Endino. June of 88, they come in to record Love Buzz.
Right. After, getting a real drummer, finally getting Chad in the band, John Poneman says, hey, I'll pay for a 7-inch, but you got to record Love Buzz.
Yeah. So it was Poneman's idea to do it.
To do that, exactly, because
Wow.
he knew that they were doing this Shocking Blue cover at their shows. And, he said, I'll do a single for you, but you got to do Love Buzz. And the band is like, well, a cover tune for our first single. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And so we did that. And at that session, they did a couple of songs. They did that song. They did a song called Blandest. I think they did an early version of Mr. Mustache, and maybe an early version of Sifting was done. And Kurt was he was indecisive about what song to put on the B-side. He figures they had this song called Blandest, and it was named Blandest because it was kind of bland, And Kurt said, well, it's a B-side. Let's just put that on the backside. And I kind of said, this take isn't very good, and you guys, this is going to be your first original song that anybody's ever going to hear. Why don't you put one of the stronger songs on there? And he was like, well, yeah, you're probably right. So they went with Big Cheese instead. And Blandest, actually, there's a little flub in the drum track, and Kurt said later, he said, that's a terrible take of that song. We can do way better. Let's just wipe over it. We need the tape right now. We'll just do a better one later. And, silly us, they never got around to doing it again. So that song ended up getting bootlegged from a rough mix cassette that we passed out to some people. And, so there's like whatever you've heard, it's like fourth generation cassette copy. Maybe we'll play it in a while here, but that was the other outtake from Bleach. And, so the actual Bleach sessions ended up happening in December, right around the holidays.
Mm-hmm. December 23rd they commenced, did they not?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes.
I know we were in there on Christmas Eve as well, if I remember correctly. In the afternoon. And I think possibly even New Year's Eve day. I'd have to go back and look at the log sheets. But, they did a bunch of, some afternoons, 3 or 4 hours here, 3 or 4 hours there. And so we ended up remixing Love Buzz for the album, and we took Big Cheese from the single and put that on there and re-recorded those other tunes. And took the 2 songs from the original demo that I mentioned and put those on there, and there was Bleach.
Okay, so let's go ahead and play Love Buzz. This is a different version than the Sub Pop 45.
The Sub Pop 45 starts with this little sound collage, and actually the mix isn't that good. The version on the album was the remixed, slightly later version.
Okay. Love Buzz by Nirvana. It's Dick Rossetti here with Jack Endino, and let's listen to it. 1077 The End, Nirvana Love Buzz. Today, the 10th anniversary of the death of Kurt Cobain. It's Dick Rossetti here with Nirvana producer and friend of mine, Jack Endino.
Greetings. How you guys doing?
You were there for the recording of that song.
That song you just played?
Yes, you were there.
Yes, indeed, I was. And you know, there's a funny story about that song. We did that song, and of course, John Poneman from Sub Pop paid for it, but he made Kurt go back in and re-sing the vocal for some reason. I don't remember exactly why. He sort of had some idealized vision in his head of what it should sound like. And Kurt went back in and said, okay, and he re-sang the vocal, and it sounded pretty much exactly the same. So
Classic record company guy.
Classic record. Well,
yeah.
John was new at the thing, you know. Mm-hmm. He was flexing his record company muscles. And,
was it
trying to get into the idea of being a record company, but, you know, he knows better now.
So the story, the 606 and change, is true for the cost of that album.
It is more or less true. The only reason you could argue about that is because two of the songs were originally recorded during the first demo I did for them in January of '88. So you could say that those two songs were 1/5 of the 10 songs that I did at that demo, which means that was about another $15 worth. So maybe it was $621. But,
yeah.
But nobody really wants to nitpick. Yeah, they actually did spend $606 in December. Well, plus, I think maybe even the Love Buzz session is included in that. I don't remember.
Yeah. Well, 606 looks good on the back of my
That's what's on the log sheet.
Okay, About a Girl, classic Nirvana Kurt Cobain pop song. Tell me about the recording about that.
He apologized. He said, he apologized to me and to the band. He said, now, you know, I know this doesn't sound like it's going to fit on the record, but I really want to do this song, and it might be where I go in the future with my songwriting. He says, I've just got this little pop tune, and I just want to do it. And I hope Sub Pop doesn't get upset with me for putting a cheesy pop song on my record. You know, and he was like apologizing to me, and everybody was like, no, Kurt, it's all right. It's a good song. But, you know, in retrospect, you look back on it, and I've said this before, Bleach is not really a punk rock record. It's a hard rock record. It's kind of a 70s-style hard rock record. I mean, the band and I were referencing an AC/DC record while we were mixing it. Mm-hmm. Nobody used the word punk anywhere. And if you think back on all those, like, heavy rock records from the 70s, they all had a token ballad tune. There was always a token little acoustic number stuck between all the sludge. You know, even Black Sabbath, Master of Reality, I mean, Zeppelin records, whatever, they always stuck an acoustic song in there to sort of balance it out.
Lighter fare.
Yeah, one song as relief, you know, from the heaviness. And it's just kind of funny thinking back on it, going, oh, Kurt did exactly the same thing with Bleach, you know. So
and so the band was supportive about it from the start.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay. No. I mean, everybody was fine with it. I mean, Kurt was sort of more apologizing to me, like, you know, because previous to that, the first demo we did was very influenced by the Melvins. It's very heavy and angular and dissonant, and, you know, and riffy. And then the Bleach stuff was starting to get a little more straightforward, you know. And then he pulled that song out, you know, in the middle of the session and said, well, I don't know how this is going to fit on the record, but, you know, it's really cool and I want to do it. And there you go. That's the one that everybody remembers, of course.
The candy coating on that song, for me, is a tambourine. Whose idea was that? Who threw that on there?
Is there a tambourine?
There's a tambourine, yeah. That's what gives it its Beatlesque feel.
Oh, my goodness. I would guess it might have been Chad's idea.
Okay.
And or it might have even been Kurt's idea. I don't think there's a tambourine. Is there a tambourine on any other Nirvana song?
That's what I always wondered about this. That's what always stuck out in my head.
We joke about tambourines. It's like cowbells, you know. Yeah. I've got a fever and I need more. Never mind.
Well, why don't we audition About a Girl?
I think so.
It's Dick Rossetti on the end here with Jack Endino. We're doing the Bleach album by Nirvana. We'll listen to About a Girl. Okay, go.
And
1077 The End, Nirvana, about a girl from Bleach. Dick Rossetti here with Jack Endino. We are talking Nirvana.
Hey, hey.
That's we are. So
yes, indeed. And you know what? Listen to the song Paper Cuts on Bleach.
Uh-huh.
He says Nirvana in the song. Nirvana. Nirvana. That's what he says at the end of the song, I swear to God.
Did you say anything to him while you guys were recording?
No, I didn't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, so nobody did.
Nobody did at the time. You know, I don't think anyone really thought about it.
Yeah, back then it was just that opening song on the Cult Love album, Nirvana.
Oh.
Yeah, huh?
Well, they were English. They would say Nirvana. We're Americans. We'd say Nirvana.
You wanted to talk about School.
School. The song School.
The fourth track on
School, an example of economical songwriting. School, if you listen to it, you may not notice, but the song only has 3 lines. Won't you believe it, it's just my luck. No recess, and you're in high school again. And that's the entire song.
Did anybody shed light on that when you were recording it?
No.
No? It
No,
was
it's
fine.
like one take, it's done. Okay, let's mix it, you know. I mean, it's a great song, and it doesn't really need to say anything else.
All right, so let's listen to the 3-line song from Bleach.
Yeah.
School, Nirvana on the end. .77 The End, Nirvana. School from Bleach. It's Dick Rossetti here with Jack Endino, the guy that ran tape on that session. You wanted to say something else about that song?
Well, it's funny because Kurt, I think somewhat later he went on record and said something about what the subtext of that song was, and it's basically, I think, because he considered being in high school again. He thought the Seattle music scene was a little bit like being in high school again. It's like, you know, you had to impress your peers, and I think he felt like at the early Nirvana shows it was like the people out in the audience should be holding up cards with numbers on them, you know. Typically playing at the Vogue on a Tuesday night, there'd be like 10 people in the back of the room with their arms folded, you know, clapping politely. In the early days, you know, trying to figure out, is this cool? Should we decide that it's cool? You know,
Yeah.
is someone going to tell us it's cool? Someone please tell us it's cool, you know. And I think that's how Kurt sort of felt. So it's that You're in High School Again was kind of his his little hidden take on trying to fit into the Seattle music scene. But of course, he said that years later, so who knows if that's what he was thinking at the time. I have to say, I watched him write a lot of the lyrics for Bleach. Like, it seemed like he was writing them more or less on the spot, before singing the vocal, or maybe he sort of had them in his head.
Well, that's another thing I wanted to ask. Like something like that, with musicians know this, and a lot of times people just write song lyrics that
sound good.
Yeah, and they don't have, like, for a lot of his songs, I think there's a good chance, with all due respect, that a lot of people read more into it than that was there, and he was writing a song to make sense with the way the song went, and not every word had this
literal,
gargantuan meaning behind it.
I would say that probably a large portion of the stuff he wrote could be, I'd say a lot of Bleach is fairly innocuous, and you can't really figure out what it means, if anything. Some of it is just interesting poetry, or just words that sound good together because they rhyme. And I watched him just whipping things out, just kind of off the top of his head, more than once. I think by the time In Utero came out, you got some pretty serious lyrics going on there, and you can really tell the difference if you sit and read them.
Yeah.
He obviously had decided it was time to really put some thought into this. But, never mind. Who knows what the heck most of that stuff means.
So yeah, as the media portrays it, they aren't these biblical scriptures for Gen X.
Listen, we're old. I can mention American Pie to you, right?
Sure.
This song by Don McLean, it's still on oldies radio. It's just this long, baffling allegory of a song. And it came out in 1971, and it was like a national sport, I remember at the time. I was a little kid, but everybody was like, what does it mean? What's he talking about? Everyone was reading all this stuff into it. Yeah. And, because it was just this baffling stream of consciousness rant. And so, I mean, Nirvana stuff is vague enough that you can pretty much, get out whatever you put into it to some extent.
So it's safe to say that maybe School was Kurt Cobain's Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Oh, dear. Well, no,
maybe not.
I don't know. It's just a good song. Think of it. It's a good song. I mean, I have nightmares about being in high school again.
Yeah.
I mean, don't you have nightmares of sleeping through exams and just people beating you up? I mean,
it's a horrible existence.
And so much of Kurt wrote a lot of stuff about what is that other song? I think Big Cheese is about she eats glue. How about you? It's like some weird paranoid school vision of some kind. Some weird grade school thing. I think the school must have really scarred him horribly.
So we'll play Negative Creep. We have to do spots, commercial spots.
Spots. Oh dear.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
You are a commercial station.
I didn't give you a heads up on that. Dick Rossetti here with Nirvana producer Jack Endino. We'll listen to more stuff off Bleach after this stuff.
I'm a negative creep and I'm stoned. I'm a negative
end.
107.7 The End. Nirvana Negative Creep, Dick Rossetti here with the Nirvana producer, Jack Endino. Your thoughts on that selection, Jack?
Oh, on that selection on Negative Creep? People
Yes.
ask me why it's faded. They want to know what happens. I said, no, the band wanted me to do a fade ending on it. 'Cause I think it's one of the only Nirvana tunes with a fade ending, if I remember right.
How much more was left on that?
Not much, and now I'm sure it just fades out right about at the point when they stopped. So it's not like you're missing anything.
We have an outtake from the Bleach sessions?
Well, yeah, and the reason I don't feel bad playing it because there's a bunch of bootlegs in front of me. I see it about 3 or 4 times. So I mean, there's this song that we recorded would have been on the Love Buzz single, except that it just wasn't as good, and never got re-recorded. It's called Blandest, and I'm assuming it'll be on the box set someday. Except that there's no master tape of it anywhere. Mm-hmm. The only source is bootlegs. So it'll be a matter of whether they can, how good a generation they can find whenever they get around to it. And, that's another story that who knows what's up with that, what legal shenanigans are going on with the box set. But basically, here's this song, Blandest, and I didn't hear it for years until someone gave me a copy of it years later. And I thought, oh, my goodness, this terrible rough mix that we made it, whenever 1 a.m. or something, and this is all anybody's ever going to hear this song, and I'm just kicking myself. Oh, and we erased it. It's not, because it's not a bad song, really. I don't think it would have been a good first song for them to release of their very first original song that anybody would hear, because it's kind of ponderous. But in retrospect, it's an interesting tune. So yeah, go ahead and play it.
All right. Blandest, Nirvana on the End. 107.7 The End, Nirvana, Blandis. Dick Rossetti with Jack Endino, the guy who recorded that song, Are You Not?
Yeah. That's the lost song from Bleach, actually, that the master tape does not exist.
You brought in another goodie.
Well, and again, I see that this has been bootlegged, but I don't see it on your list because, I got it from a bootleg originally. Nirvana did a tape in 1987. They went on the air at Chaos Radio in Olympia. And actually, our man John Goodmanson, who is right now recording a Blood Brothers record, actually.
Responsible for the Harvey Danger flagpole sit-up.
Exactly. Well, John actually was working at Chaos Radio at the time, and he recorded them. And it went out over the air as basically, I don't remember what they called it. They may have called it Skid Row or Ted Ed Fred or something. They weren't called Nirvana at the time, but it was Chris and Kurt and a different drummer. I think it might have been Dave Foster.
Who is?
Mr. Mustache himself.
That's so great.
Supposedly, yes, the guy with the mustache. And
God.
God bless him, And so many Pete Bests out there.
Oh, ouch.
Well, think about it. God.
I know.
Man. Anyway, they played this tape, and it's, like I said, some kids sent it to me a long time ago, so I was like, okay, this thing is out here. And it's mostly the songs that we recorded with Dale Crover a year later in January '88. But there was a song on there that everybody didn't know what the heck it was, and it's a cover tune by a band called Thunder and Roses. And I discovered that I had this original record in my collection and didn't even remember it. It's from 1970 or something. And the song is called White Lace and Strange, which I see is not on your A to Z.
Our list of illegal funds.
Yeah, it would be in W, and you've got quite a lot of bootlegs here, and I'm surprised this one didn't make it. And it would be right after Where Did You Sleep Last Night, and right before You Know You're Right. So it would be the second to last song on the A to Z if you had it in there. But it's an obscure cover tune that they did, and from this kind of psychedelic late 60s, early 70s sort of band that I don't really know much history about them.
Okay.
Thunder and Roses, I have no idea, but here you go.
What? Are we still on? White Lace and Strange. Yes. Thanks.
.107.7 The End, Nirvana, White Lace and Strange, brought in here by my friend Jack Endino.
Yep, that's the oldest Nirvana tune you're going to hear on the air, I think, today.
And that's with Dave Foster, a.k.a.
I think it's Dave. I could be wrong. I'm not sure it's Dave Foster, but I think it is, a.k.a. Mr. Mustache.
And the drumming's quite good on it, actually.
Yeah.
Guy wasn't a bad drummer.
I mean, Chad was pretty ripping, too. I mean, they never had bad drummers. I mean, Dale Crover. I mean, Kurt knew what he wanted,
Well, as you well know, if you have a crappy drummer, you have a crappy band.
Exactly.
Exactly.
This is a drummer saying this as well, right?
Exactly.
In fact, we're both ex-drummers, current drummers, whatever, ex-drummers. I'm ex, you're current.
We do it when it needs to get done.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So we got to take another one of these lovely commercial spot breaks, but we'll be back. We'll talk about more, and we'll play more stuff that you recorded with Nirvana, all right? It's Dick and Jack with Jack Endino in studio here on the end.
Mom and Dad went to a show. They dropped me off at Grandpa Joe's. I kicked and screamed, said please no. Grandma take me home, 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 Grandma take me home. I had to eat my dinner there, mashed potatoes and stuff like that. I couldn't chew my meat too good. Grandma take me home, 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 Grandma take me home. Said why don't you stop crying? Go outside and ride your bike. That's what I did. I killed my clothes. Grandma take me home, 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 Grandma take me home. After dinner I had ice cream. I fell asleep and watched TV. I woke up in my mother's arms. Grandma take me home, 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 while I belong.
1077 The End, Nirvana, Sliver, Dick Rossetti, Jack Endino here. He recorded everything that we have been playing for the last hour. This guy has had a hand in it.
Well, I didn't record that. I didn't record White Lace and Strange, though. That was John Goodman.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, close, though.
That's very, very diplomatic of you. I've always noticed that about you.
Credit where credit is due.
Yes, you're very good at that. Very good at that.
And so Sliver is an interesting story because this is the one Nirvana song that has Dan Peters from Mudhoney playing drums on it. And because he was sort of subbing for them a little while. I don't know. I'm not sure if he knew he was in the band or not in the band, but they invited him to do, I think, a couple of shows. And they did this one song with him. And the story's been told, and it's true. I was recording a Tad session, and John at Sub Pop called up and said, Nirvana needs to record this one song. And they're wondering if they could just come in and use Tad's equipment or something. It's just real fast, They just need to get this song done because we got a deadline. And, Kurt called up and Tad was like, well, I don't know. It's our time right now. We're making a record, Why do we have to do this? And I said, now, you guys take a dinner break. When you take a dinner break, I'll tell them to come in. And they're so fast, I'm sure they can bust it out while you guys are eating your hamburgers or whatever. So, and he's like, well, all right. But okay, as long as it doesn't take up any of our studio time. And I'm thinking, okay, cool. So they come in over the dinner break, and they, Danny sits down on Steve Weed's drum kit, and they plug into the Tad equipment really, and just busted the song out. And then Kurt came back a few days later and did the vocal, and we mixed it, and that was that. And so it was done really in a hurry. And that wound up being, what was it, Slivered, and then they ended up sticking it on that 7-inch with Dive, which was a
SP-73 was the number,
right, which was recorded earlier than that with Chad Channing on drums. And that was a song that Dive is you'd call it an outtake from Nevermind because it was recorded in the demo session for all the Nevermind tunes. It's funny that Sliver didn't end up on Nevermind, actually. But and you know, the band sort of thought it was funny because they knew everybody would misspell it as silver.
Yeah.
Which is what happened.
When you look at it, it does look like that.
Everybody misspells it as silver. But
Why?
anyway.
Why do you think they didn't keep Dan Peters? I mean, you brought. You know, you're not the guy.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't read
that because that
know?
guy is a great drummer.
Well, I think it is entirely possible that they didn't want to break up Mudhoney.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And Dan had not formally left Mudhoney. I mean, I think Steve Turner may have been going to school or something at the time, so they might have been on a little hiatus. But I mean, we still have Mudhoney with us today.
Yeah.
Thankfully, and you know. You're choosing between like two of the best drummers in rock, you know. I mean, Dan Peters, Dave Grohl. Well, I wouldn't want to have to make a choice like that, you know. But you know, in one case, you're not breaking up a great band, and you know, in the other case, you've got a guy who's a free agent ready to go, you know. So, whatever.
And you have just got done recording Chad Channing's new band.
Oh, just last week, as a matter of fact.
Now, how is he doing? People wonder about how is he
wonder
doing?
about Chad. Oh, he lives out in Kitsap County, and he's doing just fine. You know, he stays off the radar. He doesn't deal with this stuff. He did fine for himself. He did rather well off of Bleach.
Yeah,
and he just you know, he's he stays out of the limelight. He doesn't talk to. I don't think he has any big hard feelings or whatever. You know, it's. You know, especially in lieu of how tragic things went for the band later, Chad is, you know, maybe he's relieved that he didn't get dragged along and all that. So who knows? Yeah. But he's fine. He's had a series of bands over the years. He played in the Fire Ants for a while. He
played with them once.
Did you really?
Yes, we did.
I'm sure they were entertaining.
Yeah. That was with Andy Wood from Mother Love Bone's brother was a singer.
Right. Kevin. Well, no,
or the guitar player.
Yeah, right. Brian Wood was the singer, and Kevin
Wood
was the guitar player. Kevin from Malfunction, actually, who I recorded years ago as well, and. So anyway, Chad's got a band right now called East of the Equator, and we just got done recording 8 songs for them, and they were pretty darn cool.
What kind of music is it?
You know, I don't know how to say it. I could just think it's alternative rock, you know, which means nothing. You know, I don't know how to describe it, but it was pretty cool. Sort of, you know, it's pop, but it's not bubblegum. And it's, you know, it's got some riffs, but it's not riff rock, and it's heavy, but it's not heavy. So, you know, and it's, you know, loud, but it's not metal, and it's not punk. So what does that tell you? I mean, it's good stuff. There's good melodies. They've got a great singer. Chad's drumming like a madman. He's just a wonderful drummer. I wish I had him in a band myself. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to be excited to see what comes of that, because I think the band is very interesting.
Okay. You wanted to play Big Long Now.
Yeah,
which ends up on Incesticide.
Big Long Now is the other Bleach outtake, and this is the one that did get recorded. And at the time, Kurt said, you know, there's enough slow, heavy tunes on Bleach already. I don't think I want this to be on Bleach, because we had Paper Cuts, we had Sifting, we had Scoff, Swap Meet, you know, and Floyd the Barber. You know, and anyway, he says, there's enough heavy tunes on Bleach. Let's put this aside. I don't really... And it's a great song, and what I think about it that's cool, it has no solo. It doesn't really have a bridge, if I remember right, but it's a very heavy tune with a very strange... It doesn't sound like anything else, and what I think is especially noticeable is the singing on it, which I think is one of his most amazing vocal performances.
Okay.
And this ended up... I had this tape in my basement literally for years until I knew they were putting out Incesticide, and I got a hold of them, and I said, you guys, I know you're planning this Rarities record. What about Big Long Now? Do you guys remember that? It's sitting here. Why don't you guys use it? It's a great song. And like, oh yeah, that's right. Wow, Big Long. Okay, yeah, send it over. You know, so, and that ended up as they stuck it on the end of Incesticide, and so that's I think the one other Bleach outtake that almost didn't get put out.
Okay.
So listen to the singing on this.
Okay, we'll play it. Nirvana, Big Long Now, Dick Rossetti with Jack Endino in studio.
It's not colder
KNDD, Seattle. A day devoted to Kurt Cobain on your Nirvana radio station. 107.7 The End.
Sprung a lake, and the animals I've trapped have all become my pets, and I'm living off of grass and the drippings from the ceiling. It's okay to eat fish, 'cause they don't have any feeling. Something in the way, something in the way, yeah. Something in the way. Underneath the bridge, top has sprung a lake, and the animals I've trapped all become my pets, and I'm living off of grass and the drippings from the ceiling. It's okay to eat fish, 'cause they don't have any feeling. Something in the way, something in the way, yeah. Something in the way. Something in the way, yeah. Something in the way. Something in the way, yeah.
107.7 The End, Nirvana, BBC session, 1991, Something in the Way. Dick Rossetti here with Nirvana producer and all-around good guy, a friend of mine, Jack Endino.
Hey.
I wanted to ask you about stuff, your favorite stuff of Nirvana that you didn't work on.
Well, I've always kind of enjoyed In Utero. Just, I kind of enjoy the fact that, they went in and did it with Albini, which was exactly what the record company probably didn't want them to do. And I knew Steve would do something interesting with it, and he wound up making not a very user-friendly record, which I think is what they were interested. It's a very hostile-sounding record. And the drum sound is killer on some of it, and I always think about this one song. Whenever I remember In Utero, I always think about the song that goes boom, boom, ba boom, because it starts with this crazy drum sound. So, I take my hat off to Steve Albini for this one.
The second song, Scentless Apprentice.
I believe that's it.
Off In Utero.
Face
1077, The End, Nirvana, Scentless Apprentice off In Utero, 10-year anniversary of the death of Kurt Cobain. It's Dick Rossetti. Jack Endino is in studio with me. Hi, Jack.
Hey, how you doing?
I really appreciate you going past the mark and hanging out this long.
Well, thank you very much.
It's awful nice, yeah. When was the last time you talked to Kurt Cobain?
I'm not sure. It may have been 92. It may have been 92 when we did the demos for In Utero, because we did do a demo session for In Utero, but they never ended up doing any vocals on it, except for one song. So nothing really came of that. It's in a vault somewhere. I think there was a time it might have been 93 when I got a call from Kurt and Courtney together. They called me and they were sort of trading the phone back and forth because they wanted, somebody was doing a book. I think it was someone was doing a very possibly unflattering book about Nirvana, and they wanted to shut it down. And they basically sent me some stuff. They had somehow gotten the lawyers to get some copies of what might be in the book. So they were able to somehow get some copies of what was some pages involving me. This woman had interviewed me a couple years beforehand, and silly, naive me, and I just talked to her before I'd learned that you have to be careful who you talk to. So they sent me this stuff, and I realized that this woman is completely fabricating things that I said. And that was what Kurt and Courtney said, is we think that there's some funny stuff going on here, and we're going to send you this stuff, and if this is all lies, we want you to say so and just tell these people, because we're going to use it in some sort of legal thing and make them stop the publication. And they sent me this stuff that supposedly I had told this journalist, and it was all it was all lies, basically. It was complete fabrication. And I said, oh my goodness, I didn't say any of this stuff. So I said, yeah, I'll help you guys out. And I wrote up a little thing that said, hey, I didn't say this stuff, and I'll go on record and, whatever you want. And I think they talked to a few other people who were supposedly interviewed for it, and the book ended up never coming out. And I can tell you it's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't whatever it was not ethical. So yeah, Kurt and Courtney called me to ask me if I would help them in stopping this book, just by basically writing my name on a piece of paper disavowing this stuff that supposedly was an interview with me, and I readily did that because it was just nonsense. And there's still stuff like that that's gotten into books. Actually, there's a book on Kurt Cobain that's out in England that's just, it has an amazingly fictional description of the Bleach sessions. Just, Kurt swallowing handfuls of pills, supposedly, and, spilling his drink on the mixing board, and all this stuff that just, completely didn't happen. And I don't know how these stories get started, but people read them, and I'm really worried, what's Frances going to think when she grows up and she hears all this stuff? What's true and what isn't. But anyway, that may have been the last time I actually spoke with Kurt. I'm not sure.
Where were you when you found out that he died? What was going on?
I don't remember. Probably just at home. Yeah. I think I was just at home and I got a phone call. Oh, they found a body at Kurt's house.
Yeah.
And right away you're thinking, oh, great. Oh, no. And same thing, I was at home when I got the phone call for when Andy Wood died.
Yeah.
In fact, I think Kim Thiel called me both times.
Yeah, you've kind of had a what's the word?
These ex-clients of mine.
Yeah.
They have a tough time, I think. But no, you know what? I've said this, and I tried to say this to Spin a while ago when they talked to me, and they didn't print it. But I basically would like to say that I am very glad for all the people that are still here making music. Kurt died. He's dead. Life goes on. I lost my parents a couple years ago. People die around us. We get older. Friends die. People OD. People get hit by cars. You got to move on. And I'm just glad for all the bands and musicians that are still here. The Mudhoney guys, the Screaming Trees guys. A lot of these bands aren't together, but the members are still doing things. Mudhoney's still around. The Trees are all doing stuff individually. The Accused are back together playing. The Fastbacks broke up, but they're all still doing music. Tad is still jamming with people. All the Grunt Truck guys are still floating around. Soundgarden guys are all doing stuff. It's everybody is still. We're all still in it. Yeah. And I'm just glad that everybody is still around. That the people that are still here survived all the weird stuff and all the crazy years.
And that's what you mean when you say Kurt's story is a weapon of mass distraction.
It's a weapon of mass distraction in a lot of ways. I make this point. How do you think some kid in Iraq who's like dodging bullets right now, how do you think he thinks about Kurt like shooting himself?
Yeah.
He's probably thinking, you think you got problems.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, perspective here, folks, we got to thank him for leaving us the music,
Yeah.
We still got the music. Now, as I just said in my newsletter a couple days ago, go start your own band.
Yeah.
You still are here yourself. We're here. We can still do things, Go do something.
Yeah, make it work. Make yourself worthwhile.
Yeah. If you miss Nirvana, write your own songs.
Yeah. It's
Be the next one.
Yeah, something's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
You wanted to play another band that you were very involved with and close to, the Gits.
Yeah.
Mia Zapata.
Mia Zapata. This is interesting because they just convicted her killer a few days ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was last week, I think.
It'll be 2 weeks.
It'll be time flies for me. I've been in the studio too much. That was a pretty big landmark because the Mia thing has been just hanging unsolved for 10 years, and she was killed in '93.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone pointed out, that was sort of a harbinger of the following 12 months. It was like things started to go badly wrong in '93 and went on right into '94. And 94 was actually the year I did a Tad record that wound up with them getting dropped by the label before the record came out. And, so then, Kurt killed himself, and there was a lot of weird stuff. What a lousy year. So a couple, just over the last year, we took the Gits got the surviving members of the band got the original records back into their hands, and we remixed and remastered both of their studio albums. Boy, the difference was great. The master tapes were in really good shape, and we made a really good shot at just making them sound really good and bringing Mia's voice right out front and center. And I'm thinking we could play one song from the Gits' first album, Frenching the Bully, that's been remastered and remixed.
Okay,
it would be pretty cool. You get to hear Mia kicking butt a little bit.
Okay, track 2.
Yeah, let's try track 2, and I really.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's Dick Rossetti with Jack Endino on the end. The Gits.
Hey, you walk in with another headache. I can tell by the lines in your face. You seem to think if you just remove that problem, the answers are what will come.
1077 The End. Jack Endino brought that in. He wanted to play that. It means a lot to him. The Gits, another shot of whiskey.
From the remixed and remastered version of their first album, Frenching the Bully, which is available now. It just came out last year, along with a couple months later, the second album, which was Enter the Conquering Chicken.
Yeah.
Both of them sound really nice, and there's bonus cuts and everything. I mean, I'm not like the record company or something, but I just think they're really cool. And it was, when the band originally recorded them, they had no money to spend on recording. I didn't do these records originally, but they were recorded well, but they sort of ended up rushing the mixes. And they're pretty, they kick butt now.
Yeah.
As they should have. And I think somebody's working on a movie about Mia, and I think there may be something on CBS or something about the trial, and all of it's going to bring attention back to the music, which is what matters.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
She was a great lyricist and a really good singer, too.
Okay, so we're just about ready to wrap it up, but I wanted to ask you, you were in the band Skin Yard, and you played the legendary Hub Ballroom show with Nirvana and Girl Trouble.
Yeah, Nirvana, Girl Trouble, and The Fluid. Don't forget The Fluid.
From Denver, Colorado.
Exactly. I'd been working with them.
You can't leave without Do Tell. How was that show?
Do Tell. Well, it was cool. I mean, Nirvana, this was early on. What was it, 88 or something? Because Nirvana opened.
Yeah.
I mean, they had to go first out of four, which is just, but it was the Hub Ballroom. It was an all-ages show, and it was packed. And, Nirvana raged, and The Fluid raged, and we went on, and it was one of the only times that our singer got to crowd surf in Seattle. Mm-hmm. There's a picture of it in the middle of one of our CDs. It's really funny, because someone in the audience is holding up a rubber chicken for some reason, and then you see Ben crowd surfing, but then there's this rubber chicken in the picture. We never did figure out exactly why that is, and so we just, whatever, that's the rubber chicken show to us. But, so... those were the days, actually. Yeah. So is it quid pro quo time here? I don't know.
Well, you're a little sheepish about playing a Skin Yard tune, but I think that you should. I think it's the right thing.
He's talked me into it here because it's hard for him to get me to come up here and do this.
Yeah, you came down. You drove down here on your own merit. And
paid for my own parking.
Well, we'll let the Intercom family take care of that.
But so
I think you should take one. Well, and you've got a voice for radio, Jack. You do. So
we'll talk about that. Okay, We'll talk to Phil about that.
Yeah.
Maybe, but,
do you want to talk up your own song?
Well,
here?
okay, I'll talk. I get to play one Skin Yard song on the radio. Okay, yeah. Crank it. This is a song. It's Hallowed Ground. It's the title song from our second record. It was recorded in 1987. It's before Nirvana existed, really. And that probably was the song that was probably the last song of our set that night when we played with Nirvana. And it was that version of the band as well. So, enjoy a bit of vintage 1987 grunge here from the band that
he's getting flustered.
It got flustered because they were the band that sort of didn't go on and sign a major label deal. But half of the band that you hear, the singer and the drummer from this track ended up Grunt Truck, exactly, and went on to greater fame.
And the song is?
The song is Hallowed Ground.
See
1077 The End, Skin Yard. Jack Endino taking one for his own tonight.
There you go. Probably the only airplay that Skin Yard is ever going to get on a big stage in Seattle. And that song was recorded on the same 8-track machine as Bleach. Probably just, like 2 months earlier or something like that. Or, well, no, Bleach was recorded a year earlier. Same 8-track machine, same studio, same engineer, I guess.
Where's that machine now?
That 8-track machine is behind a glass case at the Experience Music Project.
All right, I should have known that.
Along with the speakers and the mixing board for reciprocal recording. They went and found everybody who had wound up with the gear and bought it all. Made everybody a nice deal and said, we want it.
Well, it seems like the right place for it.
It's funny, it still has little pieces of tape with little markings on it in my handwriting. It's another scary thing. There's a cassette at the EMP right now. I went up there and there's a little exhibit on the top floor of the EMP. It's a little special little Nirvana sidelight. And they've got this copy of the first demo that I did for them in January of '88, the one with Dale Crover on drums, basically the same one that I gave to John Poneman. And they have a copy of it sitting there on the wall, like in a little picture frame. And, it's like, okay, this is one of the demos that was given out to people. And I looked at it, and it's got the little J-card insert to it, and it's my handwriting all over it. And, the EMP people don't know that, but I looked at it, it's like, oh, my goodness, this is one of the ones that I gave somebody. It's like my handwriting on the tape, it kind of cracked me up. I was like, oh, I was trying to think, which one was that? Let's see, I gave one to this guy, and one to, So I'm racking my brain to trying to imagine where EMP got it and whose tape it is, which of the 3 or 4 that I gave out is the one that they ended up with. Yeah. So that was kind of a flash that I almost had a heart attack when I saw that a couple of weeks ago.
That's a good flash.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I appreciate you. Really, it means the world to me that you stopped by. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, it's I don't go on record about Nirvana too often, and I'll do it for you, Dick.
I appreciate that, Jack.
It's plug. What can I say? I went on record in print actually a couple days ago. I said, because here's what's been going on the last couple of weeks. Everyone in the world is doing their grunge story right now. They're all doing their 10 years. You can see it in all the magazines that got Kurt on the cover. Well, they're all calling people like me looking for their quotes. I've heard from everybody. I've heard from people in like 6 or 7 countries, and there have been people flying to Seattle from other countries, they get here and they discover that nobody will talk to them.
That's awesome.
And, I feel kind of bad for them, but I warn them. It's like, well, look, you're not going to get a hold of Chris. Chad won't talk to you. Dave Grohl won't say a word. The management is not here. Sub Pop is sick and tired of hearing about this, You're going to have a real hard time talking to anybody. And I've got a pretty full studio schedule myself, as a matter of fact. I don't know if I can make the time. So I've talked to some people, but I finally said, I'm just gonna spew a little bit, put it in my own website, in my own newsletter, and that way I'm the editor. I've got control of it. People can't pick and choose and put words in my mouth. And so I went ahead and I just went on record with some thoughts about Nirvana a couple days ago, sent it out to my newsletter subscribers, and stuck it on the website and said, here it is. Here's what I think. Let's get some perspective.
And Pearl Jam's 10 Club.
Well, supposedly someone posted it, I guess. Yes, someone snagged it there. Because it's Seattle related. People are interested in it. And, I'm just basically trying to say, look, we got to move on.
Yeah.
It's almost kind of unhealthy, this kind of
hero worship.
It's like he's become, like Spin says, he's a ghost. He's become this, legendary figure, and I called him the story. I said, this is it's like he's being used as a weapon of mass distraction. There's other things we should be worrying about right now, than this sad poor guy that shot himself 10 years ago. I mean, a lot of people have problems.
What's
I don't know. It's hard to phrase this, But anyway, never mind.
What's the website address if people want to sign up for your newsletter and read it themselves?
JackEndino.com. It's
okay.
pretty easy to figure out if anybody wants to take a look at it for themselves.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Once again, it means the world to me coming in.
Thanks for doing this, and this is pretty wild that you're playing just Nirvana all day.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to imagine.
Yeah. Harms is in next. He's got all requests, Nirvana and Alice in Chains, plus the Live in Rome bootleg, and I really appreciate him letting us run into his time. That's really a champ, too. Thanks.